Commander Kim stood at the viewing deck of the Earth exploration vessel Tenacity, watching the stars streak by as they approached the meeting point. After decades of searching for intelligent life beyond Earth, humanity had not only found it, but had been invited to meet with something called the Galactic Concord, a union of advanced alien civilizations. "Commander, we're receiving the approach vectors now," said Officer Han, his voice steady despite the historic moment they were experiencing. "The Concord delegation will meet us at the neutral station in approximately 3 hours." Kim nodded, feeling the weight of 7 billion humans on her shoulders. She represented not just the United Earth government but the entirety of human history and potential. The first diplomatic mission to an alien alliance would define humanity's place among the stars. "Prep the shuttle," she ordered, "and make sure everyone remembers the protocols. We don't know what these beings consider offensive." The team of 12 humans, scientists, diplomats, and security personnel, boarded the shuttle with careful precision. Each had been selected from thousands of candidates, representing Earth's diverse cultures and expertise. When they finally docked at the massive space station, Kim was the first to step through the airlock. She paused, taking in the sight before her. The greeting chamber housed 7 different species, each more alien than the last. Some floated in special atmospheric chambers, others stood on multiple limbs, and a few seemed to shimmer as if not fully solid. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, we extend greetings and gratitude for this opportunity," Kim said, using the universal translator developed from earlier signal exchanges. The tallest being, a slender creature with iridescent skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. "I am Representative Lon of the Galactic Concord Council. We welcome Earth's children to the greater community." The diplomatic meetings proceeded smoothly at first. Humans shared their history, art, and scientific achievements. The aliens, seemed impressed but also puzzled by certain aspects of human physiology that Kim had never considered unusual. "You sleep only once daily?" asked a small bird-like being. "And for merely 8 hours? Your species consumes plants that contain capsaicin for pleasure?" questioned another, horrified. On the 3rd day, disaster struck. The shuttle carrying Kim and 3 diplomats suffered a navigation failure during a tour of the nearby moon. The pilot fought for control, but couldn't prevent the crash landing on the airless, toxic surface. Kim woke to flashing emergency lights and the hiss of her suit's oxygen supply. The shuttle had split open, exposing them to the moon's hostile environment. Through her cracked helmet, she saw the 3 diplomats, Wu, Song, and Gil, unconscious and injured. With her own leg badly gashed, Kim dragged each of her teammates to the emergency shelter that had automatically deployed nearby. The toxic atmosphere seeped through her damaged suit, burning her lungs with each breath. The gravity, higher than Earth's, made each step agony. When the rescue team arrived 2 hours later, they found all 4 humans alive. Kim was still conscious, monitoring her teammates' vital signs despite her injuries. The Concord medical team watched in astonishment as the human bodies began repairing themselves within days. Bones knitting, tissue regenerating, organs adapting to the toxic exposure. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Tech, the Concord's chief physician. "By all our understanding, the radiation alone should have killed them instantly." Representative Lon visited Kim in the recovery chamber. "Your shuttle crashed in conditions that would be instantly fatal to every council species. Yet you not only survived but rescued your companions." Kim shrugged. "We're trained for emergencies." "No, Commander. This goes beyond training. Your species evolved on a death world. Earth? It's just home. Your planet's gravity would crush most sentient life forms. Your atmosphere contains reactive oxygen, a corrosive gas. Your world has extreme temperature variations, high radiation levels, and microscopic predators everywhere. You are the only known sentient species to evolve on such a planet." Kim sat up slowly, beginning to understand. "That's why everyone was so interested in our physiology." "Indeed. Your bodies repair damage at rates we thought mythological. Your muscles develop against crushing gravity. Your immune systems wage constant war against pathogens. You breathe oxygen that would destroy our tissues. Lan's voice carried a new emotion, respect tinged with fear. The younger species have already given you a name. The Space Orcs. Orcs? Like the monsters from our fantasy stories? Kim asked, surprised. Precisely. To them, your resilience seems magical and terrifying. You survived conditions that would exterminate any of us. News of the human survival spread quickly through the Galactic Concord. Some members reacted with fascination, others with caution. A few openly suggested quarantining Earth, fearing what such naturally armored beings might do in the wider galaxy. As Kim and her team recovered fully, another shock to the alien doctors, they noticed subtle changes in how they were treated. More security, more scans, more careful distance maintained. They're afraid of us, Officer Han noted during their final debriefing before returning to Earth. Kim looked out at the stars, thinking of home, the world that had unknowingly forged humanity into something uniquely resilient in the galaxy. Then we'll have to show them that strength can protect as well as harm, she said quietly. If we're the Space Orcs of their stories, let's be the ones who use our toughness to help, not hurt. As the tenacity prepared for the journey home, Kim knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the advanced ethereal beings of science fiction, but as the unlikely survivors, the unbreakable ones. The Space Orcs had arrived. 6 months after first contact, Dr. Park stood at the window of his new laboratory aboard the Concord Science Station. Earth was visible as a blue dot in the distance, close enough to see but far enough to feel the weight of isolation. The Galactic Concord had placed Earth under observational status rather than offering full membership. They're calling it a standard procedure, Park said to his assistant, Dr. Yoon, who was arranging tissue samples. But we both know it's a quarantine. Yoon nodded, carefully handling a vial of human blood cells. Did you see how their scientists reacted when they analyzed our cellular structure? Like we're made of something dangerous. The truth had become increasingly clear since Commander Kim's mission. The conquered species were physically fragile compared to humans. What humans considered normal, their bone density, muscle mass, immune responses, seemed almost monstrous to the delicate Concord beings. Today I'm supposed to explain our digestive system, Park sighed. They still can't believe we can eat food that isn't specifically engineered for consumption. The Concord had assigned Park to work with their leading xenobiologist, Dr. Trell, a tall, willowy being with skin that changed color with emotions. Today Trell was a nervous yellow-green. I've reviewed your files on human children, Trell said, when they met in the main lab. Is it true they routinely fall from heights, break bones, and then simply repair themselves? Park smiled. Kids are resilient. I broke my arm climbing a tree when I was 8. 6 weeks in a cast and good as new. Trell's skin paled to white, their species' sign of shock. Among my people, a broken limb means replacement. Natural healing is minimal. As the weeks passed, Park gained access to the Concord's biological database. He made a startling discovery. Every Concord species had evolved on worlds that humans would consider paradises. Stable climates, minimal gravity fluctuations, filtered starlight, and few pathogens. Earth is a death world to them, he explained during the weekly call back to the human base. The gravity alone would slowly crush most of them. Our bacteria would eat them alive. Even our sunlight would cause radiation poisoning. The human delegation received this news with mixed reactions. Some felt pride in humanity's toughness. Others worried it would further isolate them from the galactic community. 3 months into the research exchange, alarms blared throughout the station. A ship had arrived from the outer colonies carrying passengers infected with something called mesh fever, a pathogen that attacked neural connections. It spreads through shared air systems, explained the station director as emergency protocols activated. The mortality rate is nearly 40%. Park watched as panic spread faster than any disease could. The conquered species had forgotten how to handle plagues. Their worlds were too clean, their bodies too sheltered. I want to help, Park told the medical team as they struggled to establish quarantine zones. Human immune systems might have something to offer. The chief medical officer, Dr. Venn, looked skeptical but desperate. The pathogen destroys neural pathways. The treatment requires working in high radiation environments that would kill any of our physicians before they could complete the work. Show me, Park said simply. The radiation chamber was used for sterilizing medical equipment, a room bathed in energy that would destroy living cells. But the equipment to synthesize the treatment was inside and needed constant adjustment. Use robots, Dr. Venn said, but they're too imprecise for the current formula. How long would I need to stay inside? Park asked. At least 20 minutes. No conquered species could survive 5. Park nodded slowly. Humans work in radiation environments on Earth. With proper protection, I can handle 20 minutes. Despite protests from both human and alien colleagues, Park entered the chamber wearing only basic radiation gear. The warnings on the door listed exposure limits far below what he was about to receive. Inside, he worked quickly, his hands steady as he calibrated the synthesis equipment. The dosimeter on his wrist climbed steadily into the red zone. By the time he finished, every warning light was flashing. When the chamber door opened, Concord medical staff stood ready with their equivalent of emergency treatment. They were shocked to find Park walking out under his own power. Tired, but functional. I'll need some anti-radiation meds, he said, but I'll be fine. Blood tests revealed that while Park had suffered damage, his cells were already beginning repairs. The Concord scientists watched in fascination as his body fought back against radiation that would have liquefied their internal organs. The treatment worked. Within days, the infected passengers began to recover. News spread throughout the Concorde about the human who had survived certain death to help save alien lives. 2 weeks later, still recovering but healthy enough to work, Park received a visit from a Concord Council representative. Your actions have challenged certain assumptions, the representative said carefully. Many believe that your species' physical resilience would make you dangerous and unpredictable allies. Park looked up from his microscope. And now? Now they see that the same traits that make humans terrifying could also make you invaluable. Your people evolved fighting for survival every day. You breathe reactive gases, drink water filled with microorganisms, and thrive under radiation levels that would sterilize most worlds. Yet you use this strength to protect others. The next day, the quarantine restrictions on human movement were lifted. Earth's status was upgraded from observational to probationary member. As Park packed his research to return home for recovery, Dr. Trell approached him, skin glowing a warm blue of respect. We called you Space Orcs out of fear, Trell said, quietly. But perhaps we should have called you Space Knights instead. Park smiled. We're just humans. We evolved on a tough world, so we got tough too. But that doesn't make us monsters. No, Trell agreed. It makes you something the galaxy hasn't seen before, and something we might desperately need. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, Earth's first military vessel designed for interstellar combat. The ship had been rushed through production after the distress call came from the Concorde's outer colonies. Status report, Lee called out, her voice steady despite the tension filling the air. 23 TARC warships surrounding the Vela colony, Officer Kang replied from the tactical station. They've disabled the colony's defenses and have landed ground forces. Concord defenders are overwhelmed. It had been just 18 months since Earth's probationary membership in the Galactic Concorde began. Humanity had been slowly integrating into galactic society when the TARC Imperium launched their invasion. The isolationist species had stayed apart from the Concorde for centuries, viewing its peaceful cooperation as weakness. Now they were testing that theory with fire and blood. The Concorde Council is requesting immediate assistance, Communications Officer Song announced. They're specifically asking for human ground forces. A grim silence fell over the bridge. Everyone understood what that meant. The Concorde species, evolved on peaceful worlds, were physically incapable of matching the TARC in combat. But humans, the Space Orcs as they were still sometimes called, might stand a chance. Tell them we're on our way, Lee said. Prepare the dropships. The Dauntless carried 200 Earth Defense Force soldiers. volunteers who had trained specifically for space combat. As the ship approached Vela, Lee briefed the squad leaders. The TARC are targeting medical facilities and civilian shelters, she explained, displaying holographic maps of the colony. They expect the conquered species to surrender rather than watch their people suffer. They don't know much about humans, do they? Lieutenant Choi remarked darkly. Lee nodded. That's our advantage. Intelligence says the TARC have never encountered our species. They don't know what we're capable of. The dropships launched under heavy fire. 3 were hit, but the pilots, displaying what the Concorde would consider impossible reflexes, managed to crash land without casualties. Lee watched from orbit as the human forces deployed across the colony's main city. The TARC had expected an easy victory. What they encountered instead was a nightmare. Human soldiers operated in conditions that would incapacitate any conquered fighter. They fought through smoke and fire, their lungs processing toxins that would kill most species. When cut off from supplies, they continued for days without sleep, pushing physical limits that shocked even their allies. From the command ship, Lee coordinated the defense, directing her troops to protect civilian evacuation routes. The TARC, initially confused by the new combatants, soon focused their attacks on the human forces. Captain, we're getting reports from the ground, Song called out. The TARC are using sonic weapons against our troops. Lee felt her stomach tighten. The sonic weapons had devastated Concorde defenders, rupturing their sensitive internal organs. But humans, with their denser tissues and different hearing range, were less affected. Tell our people to keep their helmets sealed and push forward, she ordered. On the colony surface, the battle grew desperate. A group of human soldiers found themselves defending a hospital where hundreds of injured Concorde civilians had taken shelter. The TARC forces surrounded the building, cutting off all escape routes. Lieutenant Choi's voice crackled over the comm from the hospital's makeshift command center. They've breached the lower level. We can't hold all entry points with our remaining troops. Reinforcements are 30 minutes out, Lee responded. Can you hold? There was a pause before Choi answered. We'll hold. Whatever it takes. What happened next would become legend throughout the Conquered. Security footage later showed Choi and his remaining 12 soldiers moving with a coordinated precision that seemed impossible given their injuries. 3 had broken bones, others had shrapnel wounds or burns, yet they fought as if at full strength. When the TARC breached the main doors, they met humans fighting with what the conquered species could only describe as berserker fury, a controlled rage channeled into defensive action. The soldiers used anything available as weapons, from medical equipment to pieces of broken furniture. The TARC, who had evolved as apex predators on their world, had never encountered beings who could match their physical abilities. They certainly never expected to find themselves outmatched. From orbit, Lee watched the battle through fragmented video feeds. They're actually pushing them back, she whispered in disbelief. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Choi's team still standing, bloodied but unbowed. Of the 12 defenders, 10 had survived, all with injuries that would have killed any Concorde species. The battle turned, with human forces securing key positions throughout the colony. The TARC commanders made a strategic decision: retreat. They're pulling back to their ships, Tactical Officer Kang reported, surprise evident in his voice. All TARC ground forces are withdrawing. 3 days later, the remaining TARC fleet jumped out of the system. The invasion, their first major defeat in decades, had ended. In the aftermath, Lee walked through the colony's central plaza, now a field hospital for both conquered civilians and human soldiers. The contrast was striking. The conquered wounded lay perfectly still in sterile environments, while injured humans sat up in beds, some already arguing to return to duty despite wounds that made the medical staff wince. A conquered council representative approached, his movements careful around the human soldiers. Captain Lee, the council wishes to express our profound gratitude. Without your intervention, this colony would have fallen. Lee nodded. We came as soon as we could. There is something you should know, the representative continued. We intercepted TARC communications during their retreat, They referred to your forces as demons and unkillable beasts. They were terrified. Lee looked around at her troops. Ordinary, men and women who had done extraordinary things. We're not demons, we're just humans protecting people who needed help. The representative's expression changed to something like wonder. For millennia, the galaxy has evolved toward peace. Most species shed their aggressive instincts, their physical strength, their capacity for violence. We thought these traits primitive, until we needed them. As medics tended to the wounded, conquered children cautiously approached the human soldiers, bringing water and small tokens of thanks. One small child, her skin the pale blue of her species, placed a flower-like object in Lee's hand. What my colleague means to say, an older Concord civilian said, stepping forward, is that today, the galaxy discovered something important. There is a difference between being peaceful and being defenseless. Your people remind us of this distinction. That night, as the Dauntless prepared to escort conquered medical ships back to safer territory, Lee received a message from Earth Command. The Galactic Concord had formally requested a permanent human defensive presence in their outer systems. The Space Orcs, once feared for their resilience and capacity for violence, were now being asked to serve as guardians. The newly constructed Earth Embassy on the Concord Central Station gleamed under the light of 3 nearby stars. Its design incorporated elements from dozens of Earth cultures, a deliberate choice to showcase human diversity to the galactic community. Inside, Engineer Choi was putting the finishing touches on the environmental systems before the formal alliance ceremony. You've included separate air filtration for each species? Asked Ambassador G, adjusting her formal uniform. Choi nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. 17 different atmospheric compositions. Some conquered species can't even breathe the same air as each other, let alone ours. 6 months had passed since the battle at Vela Colony. The Tark Imperium had withdrawn to their borders after encountering human resistance, and the Galactic Concord had rapidly reassessed humanity's position. Earth was no longer a probationary member, but had been invited to join as a full alliance partner, the fastest elevation in conquered history. Ambassador G checked the time. The ceremony begins in an hour. The council representatives will be arriving soon, along with delegates from 47 member worlds. She looked at Choi with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Today changes everything for humanity. No pressure, Choi replied with a grin. The great chamber filled quickly. Humans mingled with beings of all descriptions, crystalline entities that floated on repulsor fields, aquatic species in water-filled environment suits, and everything in between. After the battle at Vela, attitudes had shifted dramatically. Where once humans had been viewed with caution or even fear, now they received nods of respect and gratitude. Captain Lee, recently promoted after her role in the Vela defense, stood in her dress uniform near the Earth delegation. She noticed how conquered security personnel deferred to her human security team for certain matters. They want us to check the emergency exits, her security chief reported. Apparently, we're better at crisis thinking than they are. That's one way to put it, Lee said, hiding a smile. The ceremony itself was solemn and formal. The conquered High Council, 12 representatives from the founding species, welcomed Earth as a full member with all rights and responsibilities. When Ambassador G signed the alliance document, applause filled the chamber in a dozen different ways, from traditional human clapping to the harmonic tones emitted by the crystalline lith representatives. Today marks not just an expansion of our community, announced the Concord High Speaker, but an evolution of it. Humanity brings unique perspectives and abilities that complement our own. Where we have focused on intellectual and technological advancement, humans remind us of the importance of resilience and protective instinct. At the reception afterward, Choi found himself surrounded by curious aliens eager to learn more about human culture. He'd brought samples of Earth foods as a gesture of goodwill, not realizing the stir they would cause. This contains capsaicin? Asked a Malorian scientist, examining a piece of mild jalapeno pepper with scanning equipment. The same compound you use as a defensive spray against attackers? Well, yes, Choi admitted. but this is very mild. It's for flavor. Despite warnings, several delegates insisted on trying the pepper. What followed was a minor diplomatic incident as medical teams rushed to treat what the aliens experienced as chemical burns. "I don't understand," Choi told the irritated medical officer later. "Humans eat these every day. Children eat them." The doctor, a six-limbed being with translucent skin, shook his head in disbelief. "Your species voluntarily consumes defensive toxins for pleasure. Add that to the list of terrifying human traits." The next few weeks brought daily surprises as humans and aliens adjusted to closer cooperation. Mixed crews became standard on exploration and trade vessels, with humans often serving in security, engineering, and emergency response roles. "They're calling us the durable ones," Communications Officer Song told Captain Lee during a briefing. "Apparently, our reputation has spread. Ships with human crew members are considered premium vessels now because we can handle emergencies that would defeat most species." Lee raised an eyebrow. "Is that respect or fear?" "Both," Song admitted. "But mostly respect." Not all cultural exchanges went smoothly. When human families began relocating to Concord stations, they brought their pets, a concept that horrified many alien species. "You keep predators in your living spaces?" asked a Concord administrator when Pilot Min arrived with his cat. "While you sleep?" Min tried to explain that domestic cats were harmless companions, but the administrator remained unconvinced. "It has retractable claws, enhanced night vision, and killing instincts," the administrator noted on his report. "And you call it fluffy." Special accommodations had to be made and a new regulation established. All Earth pets required special permits and warning signs on residential doors. 3 months into the alliance, Choi was assigned to a joint engineering project, developing ships that could accommodate mixed-species crews for long-duration missions. The challenge was immense. Different gravity needs, atmospheric requirements, and physical capabilities all had to be considered. During one planning session, a heated debate broke out about emergency protocols. In case of hull breach, the atmospheric containment should prioritize Tellarite sections, argued a Tellarite engineer. "Our species can survive only 3 minutes without our specific air mixture. Humans can go minutes without oxygen, but we should consider the Voth first," Choi countered. "They'll suffer neural damage after just 90 seconds. The debate continued until a Malorian diplomat interrupted. "This is precisely why mixed crews are vital. Each species has different vulnerabilities and strengths. Together, we become more resilient than any single species could be alone." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this simple truth. That evening, Choi joined a group of engineers from 6 different species at the station's observation deck. They watched as a new class of ship, the first designed by the combined talents of humans and conquered species, prepared for its maiden voyage. "We named it Phoenix," Choi told the others. "In Earth mythology, it's a bird that rises from ashes, symbolizing renewal." "Appropriate," said his Lith colleague, light pulsing through her crystalline form. "From the ashes of conflict at Vela, colony rises a true alliance." As the ship's engines flared to life, Choi felt a profound sense of belonging. Humans had found their place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or subjects, but as protectors and partners. The very traits that had once made humans seem dangerous now made them valued allies. "You know what's strange?" he said to no one in particular. "On Earth, we always imagined aliens would be more advanced than us in every way. We never considered that evolution might take different paths, that we might have something unique to offer." "The universe favors diversity," replied the Lith engineer. "Even Space Orcs have their place among the stars." Choi laughed. The nickname, once fearful, had become almost affectionate. Long-range sensors picked up the first signs of the harvesters just outside the Rylith system, strange energy readings and distress signals that cut off mid-transmission. Within days, 3 outer colonies had gone silent. Admiral Kim, formerly Commander Kim of the First Contact mission, now led the Concord's combined defense fleet from her flagship, the UES Defender. "What do we know about these harvesters?" Kim asked during the emergency briefing with Concord officials. The Concord archival master, a being of shifting light and vapor contained in an environmental suit, displayed ancient records on the main screen. They appear once every 10,000 years, mechanical entities that consume organic worlds. The last time they came, our ancestors were barely capable of spaceflight. Now we believe they have returned. Holographic images showed massive ship-like structures with spider-like appendages, each one larger than a small moon. Our historical records are fragmented, continued the archival master. But they suggest the harvesters are not alive as we understand it. They are machines built for a purpose that was forgotten millennia ago. Senior officers from 20 different species listened intently. Humans made up only a small percentage of the fleet's command structure, but held key positions in combat and emergency response roles. How do we fight them? Asked Fleet Captain Bay, Kim's second in command. That's the problem, said the Concorde, strategic director. We've never successfully fought them. In previous cycles, they harvested dozens of worlds before simply leaving. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds were at risk. Kim stood, her decision made. We evacuate the outer colonies immediately. Then we gather every combat-capable ship and establish a defensive line at Sector 7. If these harvesters want our worlds, they'll have to go through us first. 3 weeks later, Kim stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching as the largest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy's history formed up around her ship. Over 2,000 vessels of all sizes and configurations, crewed by members of every Concorde species, and at least one human on each ship. Admiral, called Lieutenant Park from the communication station, the Harvester fleet has changed course. They're heading directly for our position. Kim nodded grimly. The evacuation of the outer colonies was still underway. They needed to buy time. All ships, battle formation Delta, she ordered. Remember your training. We hold this line. The Harvester. Ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. 7 massive structures that dwarfed even the largest conquered vessels. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out to surround the defensive fleet. They're scanning us, reported the sensor officer. Unusual energy signatures, nothing like our technology. Before Kim could respond, strange pulses of energy emanated from the Harvester vessels. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the fleet, non-human crew members began collapsing. On the Defender's bridge, alien officers fell to the deck, their neural systems overwhelmed. Medical teams to all decks, Kim shouted, rushing to help a fallen Malorian officer. What's happening? Park, still functional at his station, worked frantically at his console. It's some kind of targeted energy weapon, disrupting neural patterns, but it's not affecting humans. Kim looked around the bridge. Every non-human crew member was incapacitated, but the humans remained unaffected. Reports flooded in from across the fleet, the same pattern everywhere. Only humans were still operational. It must be tuned to the common neural patterns of conquered species, theorized the ship's human science officer, who was checking vitals of fallen crew. Our brains developed differently on Earth. We're immune. Kim made an instant decision. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Human crew members, take control of your vessels, maintain formation and prepare for my commands. Across the fleet, the scenario repeated. Ships designed for crews of hundreds were now being operated by skeleton crews of 4 or 5 humans. On some vessels, a single human engineer or security officer found themselves in command. We need to disable those energy weapons, Kim said. Form attack groups and target the emitter arrays, human crews only. We can't risk anyone else. What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. Human pilots, engineers, and officers, many operating in positions they weren't trained for, coordinated a desperate defense against the Harvester fleet. They adapted quickly, figuring out unfamiliar controls and systems while under fire. On the heavy cruiser Steadfast, Engineer Choi found himself acting as both pilot and weapons officer after all other crew members collapsed. He managed to bring the ship's main cannon to bear on a Harvester emitter, scoring a direct hit that temporarily disabled the neural weapon. Defender, this is Steadfast, he reported. We've knocked out one emitter, but these things have redundant Systems. It's coming back online. Kim coordinated the scattered human crews as best she could. Focus fire. We need concentrated attacks on each target. Hours passed in desperate combat. The humans fought with everything they had, pushing themselves beyond normal limits. Many hadn't slept in days, subsisting on emergency rations and stimulants, as they worked to protect their unconscious alien comrades. On the medical ship Mercy, Dr. Park worked frantically to devise a shield against the neural weapon. With alien medical staff incapacitated, he relied on human nurses and technicians to treat thousands of affected patients. The wavelength is shifting, he reported to the Admiral. They're trying to find a frequency that will affect humans too. We don't have much time. The battle reached its critical point when 3 harvester vessels surrounded the Defender. Kim's ship had taken heavy damage, shields failing and hull breached in multiple sections. The remaining human crew fought to keep systems online, working in conditions that would have killed most species. Compartments exposed to vacuum, radiation leaks, toxic smoke filling corridors. "We've lost engines," reported Captain Bay, who had recovered enough to stand but was still disoriented. "Weapons at 30%. Kim looked at the tactical display. The harvesters were closing in for the kill. Dozens of conquered ships had already been destroyed, and the defensive line was crumbling. "There's one option left," she said quietly. "All ships with functioning drives fall back to secondary positions. Damaged vessels set collision courses with harvester weapon systems." "Admiral," Park protested over the comm. "That's suicide." "No," Kim replied. "That's duty. We swore to protect the Concorde, and that's what we'll do." As the functional ships retreated with their incapacitated crews, 27 heavily damaged vessels, each piloted by just a handful of humans, accelerated toward the harvesters. The machines, perhaps recognizing the threat, concentrated fire on the approaching ships, but the humans drove onward with grim determination. Engineer Choi, piloting the crippled Steadfast, aimed for a critical junction on the largest harvester. "For Earth and the Concorde," he whispered as his ship closed the final distance. The impacts were catastrophic for both sides. Antimatter containment fields collapsed, reactor cores overloaded, and massive explosions bloomed in the darkness of space. When the light faded, 3 harvester vessels were severely damaged, their neural weapons offline. The remaining Concorde fleet, now reorganized under Kim's command, pressed the advantage. As the neural weapons failed, alien crew members began to recover, joining their human comrades in the fight. In the end, it was not superior technology or numbers that won the day, but the unique human combination of resilience, sacrifice, and adaptability. The harvesters, perhaps encountering resistance unlike anything in their long history, eventually withdrew from Concorde space. 2 weeks later, Kim stood before the assembled Galactic Concorde Council. The chamber was filled to capacity, representatives from every world watching as she delivered her report. "The harvesters have retreated beyond our sensor range," she concluded. "We believe they will not return within our lifetimes. The threat has passed." The High Speaker rose, addressing not just Kim but all humans present. "Throughout our history, when the harvesters came, we could only hide and hope. We evolved toward peace and cooperation, but in doing so, lost something vital, something your species retained." "We're just glad we could help," Kim replied simply. "You did more than help," the speaker continued. "You showed us that the very traits we once feared in humans, your physical resilience, your protective instincts, your ability to function in conditions we find impossible, are precisely what the galaxy needed." The Council's vote was unanimous. Humanity would be designated as the official guardians of the Concorde, with authority to establish defensive outposts throughout conquered space. As Kim left the chamber, she found Dr. Park waiting in the corridor. "So," he said with a tired smile, "from Space Orcs to Guardians of the Galaxy. Not bad for a species that still gets excited about spicy food and keeps predators as pets." Kim laughed, feeling the weight of recent weeks finally lifting. "Maybe that's why we were able to help. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day, so we learned to protect what matters no matter the cost." Outside the council hall, humans and aliens mingled freely. The old barriers of fear and misunderstanding gone. Children from various species played together, with human children teaching alien friends games from Earth while learning new ones in return. "Look at them," Park said softly. "They don't see differences, just possibilities." Kim nodded, watching, as the future of the galaxy took shape before her eyes. Humans had found their place among the stars not as conquerors or oddities, but as protectors, the unlikely guardians who used their strength not to dominate, but to defend. The Space Orcs had become the Space Knights, and the galaxy was safer for it.